Shalom Alaikum. Tonight we're going to discuss the solar calendar again. Um, Tonight we're going to discuss finding Abib 1. Abib 1 is discussed in the scriptures as being the beginning of months for Israel. But first we have to understand that the solar calendar is, or the reintroduction of the solar calendar by the Honorable Yahweh ben Yahweh is a testimony as to who he is. And I reference Matthew chapter 24, verse 30, which says, "And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." The sign of the Son of Man. The sign itself is explained in Exodus chapter 31. Yahweh ben Yahweh made this clear to us when he was here in the flesh. Now, this is Yahweh ben Yahweh. This is Yahweh ben Yahweh. This is what people seem to have missed. This is the Holy Bible. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory. And in order to understand the teachings of the Honorable Yahweh ben Yahweh, we have to pick up this book. Yahweh ben Yahweh is the Word. The Word was made flesh. The flesh was not made the Word. Yahweh ben Yahweh taught us that if you had a problem with his flesh, close your eyes. See, this book is Yahweh ben Yahweh. So when we study this book, we're studying Yahweh ben Yahweh. Now, Exodus chapter 31, verse 13 tells us, "Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbath ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am the Lord Yahweh that sanctify you." And again, Exodus 31:17, "It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed." That's the same sign that is spoken of Matthew chapter 24, verse 30. The sign of the Son of Man is the coming of Yahweh ben Yahweh, reintroducing the correct way to keep the seventh day with the solar calendar. So this solar calendar is holy. And finding Abib 1 is what we're sharing tonight, based on the teachings of Yahweh ben Yahweh, which tells us to seek to understand the nature of a thing, learn all you can about a thing, and then use what you learn to better yourself and your nation as a whole. Let's make it clear that in Exodus 31:17, 31:13, and 31:17, Yahweh said that it is a sign between Israel and Yahweh. It's not a sign between the world and Yahweh. It's a sign between Israel and Yahweh. We, Israel, we're the ones to keep the seventh day. This is our connection to Yahweh. This is how we're blessed. And it's one law for all. So we share it openly so that if you choose to keep the law, you can. But in the beginning, Genesis 1, the beginning of what? This is at the beginning of time. The calendar is a chart for keeping time. In the beginning, Yahweh created the heaven and the earth was without form and void. And darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of Yahweh moved upon the face of the waters. Here, Yahweh is letting us know that He created time from nothing. The beginning is dealing with the beginning of time. Void is synonymous with zero. Nothing and zero, void is synonymous. And Yahweh said, let there be light, and there was light. And Yahweh saw the light that it was good, and Yahweh divided the light from the darkness. Divided the light from the darkness. We have two things, light and darkness being divided. There's a word used for that today. Greetings, brother, say Jones. There's a word used for dividing the light from darkness today. It's called equinox. It means equal night and equal day. It's a Latin word. Equinox is division of light from darkness. 12 hours a day, 12 hours of night. This is what's referenced here in Genesis 1 and 4. Yahweh saw the light that it was good, and Yahweh divided the light from the darkness. So we have the beginning of time being created from nothing, zero, counting time from zero. That's the only way you can count time. The Roman calendar counts time from one. That's impossible. That's like saying you're born 1 day old or 1 year old or one anything old. Yahweh created from void, created from nothing, created time. And He did it when He divided the light from the darkness. He did it on the equinox. The mistake that is being done is our people are using the Roman calendar to find Abib 1 and what they call the vernal equinox being a fact of nature, saying that March 21st or March 19th. Julius Caesar originally said that it was March the 25th when they did it. And then, what's his name? Constantine, the Council of Nicene, they used, they say that the sun is shining almost equally on half the earth. But let's go back to Exodus 31:13 and Exodus 31:17. The Sabbath, the seventh day, was not given to the whole world. It was given to Israel to keep. So we're dealing with the equinox for Israel, a tiny part of what's called Israel today, but that part of North Africa. Because the earth is a sphere, when there's 12 hours a day and 12 hours of night in Israel, that's what we're dealing with. Not when there's sun shining on half the planet. That's not what we're looking for. We're using this book, this Holy Bible right here. That's what we're using. This is where we were created. We came from the beginning here in that part of North Africa. And again, because the earth is a sphere, when there's 12 hours a day and 12 hours of night on the Roman calendar, for that area, it would be March 17th every year, if not for the Roman leap year system. If you look at the solar calendar that we produce, Boss produce, you'll see that Abib 1 is on March the 11th this year. And that's based on the Roman 28-year cycle. That's why you have to learn the 28-year cycle in order to understand the solar calendar. Abib 1 would be March 17th every year. That's when it's the equinox in Israel that lines up with the date on the Roman calendar, when it's 12 hours a day and 12 hours a night in Israel. It would be March 17th every year, if not for the Roman leap year system. And what the Roman calendar does is every 28 years, it realigns itself with the solar calendar. March the 11th is Abib 1 this year because we're just about at the end of the 28-year cycle again. What happens is the Roman calendar on March 17th Every 28 years, Abib 1 occurs in Israel on that date. But then 4 years later, they add, or 3 years later, they add a 366 day to their calendar, and they call it leap year for a leap day. So it can no longer be March 17th because they've added a day. So it moves. Abib 1 moves on the Roman calendar by one day. It's March 16th. People criticize this calendar because they don't understand the 28-year cycle. It's March 16th, and it stays March 16th for 4 years. Then the Roman calendar does the same thing again. They add another 366 days, calling it leap year, leap day. Now it moves from March 16th to March 15th on the Roman calendar. But we're still keeping the seventh day based on the beginning of 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night in Israel. That's what the solar calendar does. It never changes, it never varies. It's the equinox for Israel. The 12 hours a day and 12 hours of night is different depending upon where you're located on the planet. That's the trick. And they are actively trying to keep our people from finding out how to return to solar time. It's very important. And they know how important it is because that's how we become the blessed people of the earth. That's how we become the blessed people of the planet. And that's what gives us our power. Again, that rotation or that leap day trick that is done, it goes from March 15th, then they add another day, then it goes to March 14th, they add another day, then it's March 13th, they add another day, it's March 12th, and now we're in the 26th year of the 28-year cycle, and it is on March the 11th. Next year, our solar year 6023 will be the 27th year. The next leap year, their 2020, which will be our solar year 6024, that will be the closing of the 28-year cycle, and they would have added 7 days too many to true time. And what the Roman calendar does is they throw those 7 days away that they've added to true time with this leap day, and they realign itself back with the solar calendar. So we will continue to share this information and put it on YouTube. And hopefully our people who want to return to righteousness, true holiness, and keep the seventh day the way that our forefathers did, which according to Genesis 1:26, it gives us dominion. And Yahweh said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. We're in harmony with creation here in Genesis chapter 1, and that's how we have dominion, by being in harmony with creation. We have to return to keeping the seventh day the way the Creator intended for us to keep it. And that's why you see all of this confusion about it, because they do not want the righteous people of the earth to return to keeping the seventh day the correct way. So I don't see any questions. This is going to be a short class. It'll be 15 minutes. And I say, praise Yahweh ben Yahweh. Chanman Electronics. So again, I'm going to type in here, if you want your copy of a solar calendar, Exclusive fits. Um, Days are accounted on the calendar to evening and the morning is a day. Um, I'm going to get a close up on that. If you look at the days, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the days. But you have to visualize that the evening and the morning is a day. So in looking at day one, to count day one, you actually have to start at the bottom of the calendar where you have 5 counting days. 1, 2, 3, 4. That fifth day, we have 0 in that slot. But the end of the year, the evening of the 364th day, and the morning of the 365th day, that's the end of the year. So the evening of the 365th day, which is where that 0 is, if you were to divide that mentally, divide that spot in half, that square, divide it in half to evening and morning. That's the 365th day of the year. But the evening of the 365th day and the morning of the first day, that is day one. The evening of the first day and the morning of day two, that's day two. The evening of day two and the morning of day three, that's day three. The evening of day three and the morning of day four, that's day four. The evening of day four and the morning of day five, that's day five. The evening of day five and the morning of day six, that's day six. The evening of day six and the morning of day seven, that's the seventh day. The seventh day and all days begin at evening. Um, Manmani. Yes. The Sabbath started sundown Friday and ended sundown Saturday, this evening, correct. Brad Streeter, I just went over that. He said, how do we prove that Abib 1 would be March 17th every year, if not for the leap year? There is a website, as one of the many sites. Another one is, well, one is called timeanddate.com. You can go on that site, and that site will show you sunset to sunset. It will show you when you have 12 hours a day and 12 hours a night. That is one site. The other one I think is NOAA, the one, the National Oceanographic, the one that the government uses. There are a lot of military sites out there that you can use. They keep up with the sunrise and sunset. Those are the different websites that can be used to show when there's 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night in Israel. And when you look at those sites, you can see that March 17th is the year when or the date when the Roman calendar aligns itself with 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night in Israel. But again, that's from sunset to sunset. It's not from sunrise to sunset like the Roman calendar does. That's from sunset to sunset because our time begins in the evening. So that's one way you can prove it. That's how I proved it. Now, I'm not the teacher, I'm the student. So I'm sure you brothers and sisters on this call, a lot of who are smarter than me, can go and find other ways to prove it. Yo folks 3. So he was born March 19th. Is that the 19th day of the year? No, sir. March 19th is not the 19th day of the year. And I'm presuming that you're speaking of a solar year, because that's what we're talking about. Um, Judah ruler. Why are you guys on a different page than the Christ? What does that mean? Um, what does your I don't understand your question, brother. In Boss chapter 7, we're not the guidance. We're students of Yahweh ben Yahweh. Do not look at Boss chapter 7 for guidance. Look at Yahweh ben Yahweh. Um, and I see somebody saying that the year is 6021. Whoever's telling you that the year is 6021 don't know the 28-year cycle. That's all I can tell you about that. If they understand the 28-year cycle, they would know that in following the teachings of the Honorable Yahweh ben Yahweh, 1992 was 5996, which was year zero. I can give you a close up on that, or I can send you a calendar to help you understand how to calculate the 28-year cycle. And then you will know that solar time is counted in the moment. People who are saying that the year 6021, they more than likely are telling you that Abib 1 is March 19th, because they don't understand that March 19th is never Abib 1 on a solar calendar, and they're counting time starting from 1. They didn't start from 0. You cannot start counting time. So Judah ruler, you say you have the calendar, then turn your calendar over and look at the back of it, and you can prove to yourself what year it is if you believe in the teachings of the Honorable Yahweh ben Yahweh. And listen to the closing of the 7th, which the solar year was 5996 in 1992. Wow. Yo, folks, 3. This is humorous. I see he's laughing at it too. Someone asked a question, said, did Americans land on the moon? Some say it was recorded on a Hollywood soundstage. And, I can only give you my personal opinion on that. That's not why I'm here. So if you want to hear my personal opinion, ask me for my personal opinion, and I'll tell you what I think personally about that. At the end of the 28-year cycle, this 28-year cycle, it would not be 6025. It would be 6024. Your question, and yes, a big one will be sundown March 9th, which will start March 10th. But so you want to know my personal opinion on whether or not the Americans landed on the moon? I'm going to answer it with a question. Is there a McDonald's on the moon? Is there a Kentucky Fried Chicken on the moon? If there's not a McDonald's or a Kentucky Fried Chicken up there, then they ain't been up there, brother. Because they'd be out here charging folks $1 million to go to the moon and eat some Kentucky Fried Chicken. So that's my personal opinion on whether or not they landed on the moon. The technology that they're claiming to have used to take off from the Earth and go to the moon on one tank of gas and land on the moon, and then that technology to take off again from the moon's gravity, if they could land on it, doesn't exist today. They don't have that technology. So it definitely didn't have it back then in the 80s or the 60s when they claimed to have done it. I think it was a test on how gullible people are and why they did that. But that's my personal opinion. Manny, at the end of the 28-year cycle, will not be 60-25. I mean, since you wrote that up there, the end of the 28-year cycle, maybe I need to put that in writing. End of the 28-year cycle, the Roman year will be 2020, and the solar year will be 60-24. Brother, I'm gonna stick to the subject at hand. Somebody, your folks asking me about President Trump. Um, Say Jones, if you want to know who's right, study to show yourself approved. Study the teachings of what Yahweh ben Yahweh. Now you saying peace headquarters. I'm presuming again that you mean peace, Peess. Peace was put in place to be a representative or the follower of the teachings of the Honorable Yahweh ben Yahweh. Peace does not have the authority to change anything that Yahweh ben Yahweh taught. Peace does not have the authority. They say they use the word revise, and they got somebody calling themselves Daniel Israel out there claiming that he has the right or they had the right to revise his books. No, that's why we publish the classes. So you can hear what Yahweh ben Yahweh taught themselves. The classes that we share with the world, with Yahweh ben Yahweh teaching the solar calendar, Peas will not publish those classes. There's somebody within Peas that do not want our people to understand how to keep the 7th day. That's what the whole conspiracy is about. That's why the Romans changed the calendar in the first place, to keep us from keeping the law. We cannot keep the law unless we understand a solar calendar. So the whole conspiracy is against us learning what I'm sharing with you now. I'm trying to address some of the questions up here that deal with the solar calendar. I don't have any opinion on Trump creating a space security force. I don't have an opinion on that. Not concerned about it. There's scriptures that address that. What has caused us to be here and at peace headquarters? Who is right? How do we calculate the feast dates, inclusive fits? The feast dates are given to us in the Holy Bible. And what we calculate is based upon finding out how to calculate a solar calendar. Once you understand the solar calendar, you will see that all the feast dates line up with the seventh day, all of them. Exclusive fits when and what is the next one? What? The next what? So understanding how to calculate a Abib 1 is what I shared with you earlier. Again, a Abib 1 is based upon the equinox in Israel, not the equinox for the world. When you see a so-called solar calendar using March 19th as a Abib 1, you can just look at that calendar right there and say that calendar is wrong. But they don't understand the 28-year cycle. A Abib 1 is never on March 19th. They are following the ways of the world. No, the solar calendar, time being cut short, is not referring to how long it takes the Earth to rotate around the sun. The solar calendar is based upon the time it takes the Earth to rotate around the sun. That does not change. We're keeping the same seventh day that Adam kept. Would Yahweh share his Sabbath with the heathen? Again, the seventh day was given to Israel to keep. And that's why, Judah ruler, I'm addressing your question now. Would Yahweh share his Sabbath with the heathen? The seventh day, according to Exodus 31:13, Exodus 31:17, and also referring to Matthew 24:30 that I read earlier. I'll read it again if you want to. The Sabbath is given to Israel to keep. And that's why we use the equinox for Israel. We don't use the equinox for when the sun is shining on half of the planet, which is March 19th. That's why March 19th is not a Abib 1. And it's always 365 days in a year, but it takes 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 45.51 seconds for the Earth to travel from that equinox back to that equinox, the equinox for Israel. That's the equinox that we're concerned with. It will never be on March 19th. It is never on March 21st. That's just something that they put out there for the world. But we're not concerned with the world. We're concerned with the teachings of the Honorable Yahweh ben Yahweh and this holy book. Hopefully I answered that question. But the 365 days does not. Lunar Sabbath and solar Sabbath falls on the same day this year. Your question is sundown Friday to sundown Saturday is the seventh day this year. That is correct. The lunar Sabbath, from my studies, is based upon a lunar calendar. See, here somebody said lunar Sabbath is on a Wednesday. From my studies, the lunar Sabbath is based on something they call the Enoch calendar, which has 364 days. That calendar went into effect after they chased us out of Judea in the first 100 years by these rabbis who were Pharisees and Sadducees. And they keep Saturday. They don't keep the seventh day. They're Saturday worshipers. And as far as this on a Wednesday, I have no idea what that's talking about. The lunar Sabbath on a Wednesday. I have no idea what that's based on. I know it's not based on a solar calendar. Maybe Manny can share with us how they got Wednesday Sabbath, and is that based upon praise Yahweh, ben Yahweh? So we have been live. I I'm not here to explain the lunar Sabbath other than I know that the moon has 28 days in a cycle, and there's 13 of those cycles, which is 364 days, which is like a day and a quarter short. And that's why it's not used to keep, it's not the ruler of the day. That, along with Genesis, you always put the great light to rule the day, not the lesser light. Maybe somebody can help me find where that is in the word. But the great light is the sun. The sun rules the day. We keep time by the sun, not by the moon. The moon doesn't have a light. It reflects the light of the sun. So I'll say shalom alaikum, family, and we'll be back unless you have some more questions concerning that. Hopefully, if you know that if you have your calendar, um, you can reference the calendar and see that the evening and the morning constitutes a day. If you look at each square, you have to kind of visually imagine that each square is divided in half and to evening and morning. So the evening, again, the evening of the 365th day of the year, which is here, the 365th day, the evening of this day and the morning of the first day is day one. When you continue that count, then you at the end, you will see that the evening of the 364th day and the morning of the 365th day is the end of the year. Those are your 365 days. So you start counting your days not from day one, but actually from the 365th day. The evening of the 365th day is the beginning of the calendar. You start counting from there. The evening and the morning is the first day. Shalom alaikum.